Michael Savage is going to be on for a full hour via video feed. We're not just radio. We're /TV, Infowars.com/show for the free feed, michaelsavage.com. I heard about this book a few months ago, and I got to be honest with you. I never put out Obama Deception 2. I've made the film 3 times, and then it's always old, and I never release it. I have this problem for 4 or 5 years. I want to make a film so good, I never release it. This is the subtitle of the Obama Deception 2 that never came out, was basically the Obama Deception, the coming American Civil War. And it's not that I'm ripping off Savage or he's ripping me off. We're both smart. Of course, you have to be smart now to see this. Just have common sense. This country is cruising towards civil war. The collectivists, the progressives, and their controllers are going to push till there's nowhere else to run. We're not looking for a fight. They're just going to push it. Stop the coming civil war. My Savage Truth, Michael Savage, and I just can't put this book down. We just got it a couple days ago, and I think it may be his best ever. He's going to be joining us, coming up for a full hour in the second hour today. In fact, tweet for me that Michael Savage will join us for an hour live with a link to the free video audio feed page, and then put another tweet out, a quote from Alex Jones, that Michael Savage's new book, Stop the Coming Civil War, may be one of the most important books ever written. And the reason I say that is, if we don't stop the staged civil war they're planning, you've heard me like a parrot saying this for about 6-7 years, they're clearly gearing up for it. Homeland Security is designed to win the globalist takeover against the Republic. And they're going to trigger a false civil war to do it. We expose that, and that it's illegitimate, not the people in Homeland Security on average. On average, they're actually good people. I didn't used to say that till I actually did more research and ran into more of them and found out they're really freaked out because they know how real this is. They know the treasonous mission they've been given. They signed on believing they were really going to fight al-Qaeda or something, not spy on pro-life groups and tea parties and churches and prepare for martial law and gun confiscation. Plus, they're not stupid. They know the Civil War won't be fun for them, I will assure you. And it won't be fun for us either. So the battle lines are drawn. And I don't have any stock in this book. I told Weldon I want him to carry this book when I got it a few days ago. I don't know if we're doing that yet, but it's hitting bookstores very soon. But Michael Savage believes the time is now and America is at the breaking point. Yeah, there's no believes about it. This is prima facie. And anyone who doesn't understand we're on the verge of a design collapse and civil war to fully destroy the Republic is absolutely out of their mind. Michael Savage will be joining us. The latest on Ebola, confirmed al-Qaeda crossing the border, and more coming up. I have anybody on the broadcast that wants to try to save this country and wants to preserve the right of private property, the right to practice your religion, the right to self-defense, the right to be a parent, the right to not be a slave. But I tell you, I agree with about 97% of what Michael Savage talks about and breaks down. And I'm always honored to have him on the show. I've been on his show a few times. He has our reporters on a routine basis. And no one understands what's going on in the world on talk radio other than Infowars.com like Michael Savage does. He'll be joining us for the full second hour coming up. And you know that I've been making Obama Deception 2 for 5 years. And then I just wait, and I've done literally more than 50 interviews, been all over the country, other parts of the world. I could make it in about a month now because I've just got all this bombshell material that all ties together. But I've been so busy with the TV end of things and covering Ebola and deaths in my family and illnesses in the family. That's why I wasn't here yesterday. And just all hell breaking loose, quite frankly, that I never got it out. And then I always have to restart the film. I intend to get with Rob Jacobson and some of the other crew and just take what we've got and just put it out. Because the last working title, I don't want to give out the exact title, was The Obama Deception. The Second American Civil War, basically. Well, what's Savage's new book called? And since I started reading it, I can't put it down. Stop the Coming Civil War. That's why I'm saying it could be one of the most important books of our time. Because if America has a staged civil war, it will change world history forever and could trigger things that make Nazi Germany look like a Tea Party. a cakewalk. And if you're a sociologist, an anthropologist, a historian, if you have wide-ranging historical understanding, it is a no-brainer what Savage says in this book. In fact, it is a guarantee. You smoke 5 packs of cigarettes a day for 25 years, you're going to get emphysema or lung cancer. You jump off a 1,000-foot cliff without a parachute, and it has a rocky bottom, you're going to die on the bottom. You boil water, it's going to boil. You slit your wrist with a hatchet or a knife, you're going to bleed to death. What he says in this book, and it's not that I'm following Savage or he's following me, even though we do follow each other, it's that it's common sense, folks. But if we don't get this common sense out to people, the globalists are going to stage a civil war to bring this country down. That's their plan. It's the only way they can take over, and it's what all their preparations are for and what they admit they're getting ready for. So we salute Savage for being prolific, and I don't know, he's probably written 50-something books, a bunch of them #1 New York Times bestsellers. He's joining us in the next hour. Very important issue, because while we're worried about Ebola and a lot of other easy, to cover issues that, are obviously something even mainstream media covers, it's the hard issues, as scary as Ebola is, like this, that are complex, real world, and so serious that have to be dealt with. So we're going to break down in the second hour the real plan. And if a plan is exposed before you launch it, if you know about the bank robbers' plan a week before they pull off the job, you don't know when they're going to hit the bank exactly, but you know they're going to hit it the next week, what can you do? You can probably find their hideout before they do it, or you can at least be waiting on them when they show up. Don't say that we didn't have the drop on them or the jump on them, okay? We do if you pay attention. And I'm getting chills right now because this is so epic, it's so historical, it's so real, it's so hardcore. So we salute Savage for trying to put a spotlight on this. We harp on it every day here. And so does Savage. And no one is plagiarizing the other. We're looking at the same thing coming down the road here. And quite frankly, it's not rocket science. He puts it together in a easy-to-read rocket science for dummies fashion. But it's guaranteed. The collectivists, socialists, and their financial backers that want a monopoly are going to pull this off. They're going to go for broke. Fortune favors the bold. They know that. Well, fortune favors the bold on both sides. Our treasure is liberty and freedom and justice and not being slaves and having dignity. We either get involved now, ladies and gentlemen, or we're going to lose everything. That is in the second hour today. Stop the coming civil war. We ought to have a weekly report called that, because that's what's being geared up for. The entire infrastructure of Homeland Security was started for Al-Qaeda, but then flipped over to the Tea Party, veterans, gun owners, Christians, anti-Gen 21 groups, private property groups. I mean, basically, if you're a good organization that George Washington would like, if you were a moderate to George Washington, even a liberal, because he was a conservative and didn't agree with a lot of what Thomas Jefferson had to say. Those were your true conservative, would be George Washington. Liberal would be Thomas Jefferson. I admire both of them. Great thinkers. If you basically are like Thomas Jefferson, the so-called liberals hate your guts the most, because they are the antithesis of a liberal. I'll be honest with you, I'm more of a Thomas Jefferson, even though I super admire George Washington. I'm more of a Thomas Jefferson, a classical liberal. And I bet when I ask Savage this, he'll agree. I'll say, you're a classical liberal, aren't you, in the vein of Thomas Jefferson? And I bet money he agrees, because I've read his books, I've listened to him, I know what he stands for. Doesn't mean he hadn't made mistakes or, said things he probably shouldn't have. All of us have. But at the end of the day, he doesn't want to see the republic fall, so he's going to be joining us. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. That's 12 noon to 3 p.m. Eastern. We are here live, broadcasting worldwide. Back weeknights, 7 o'clock Central, InfoWars Nightly News. The news websites are Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. I've always believed that using information warfare and telling the truth, we can defeat the mountain of lies being put out by the collectivist and the globalist. And we can stop them building their prison planet, thus the term prison planet. Now, we're joined for the rest of the hour, the next 52 minutes, by Dr. Michael Savage, a multimedia icon in the conservative, libertarian, constitutional movement. Dr. Savage holds a master's degree in medical botany and a second in a lot of other key research areas. Additionally, he earned his Ph.D. from the University of California at Berkeley in epidemiology and nutrition sciences. He is the author of 25 books, including 4 New York Times bestsellers. He earned the coveted Freedom of Speech Award from Talkers Magazine in 2007, michaelsavage.com or michaelsavage.wnd.com. And when I got his new book in a few days ago and had a chance to start reading it, I haven't finished it yet, it was literally like reading Veritas, because I'm not plagiarizing him. He's not plagiarizing me. Anybody that's sat back for 20 years like I have, 40-something years like he has or longer, and watched what's going on, we're repeating history. But the way he puts it and lays it out really even lit a fire under my butt. The book is Stop the Coming Civil War. I intend to finish it tonight. Got about 3 chapters left. It's a big book, but a powerful read. I have no stock in it. I intend to sell it later as soon as we can get it in. It's Stop the Coming Civil War, My Savage Truth. Michael Savage, #1 New York Times best-selling author. Everything you see with Homeland Security has been flipped from Al-Qaeda and radical Islam to Tea Party, gun owners, returning veterans, libertarian groups, constitutionalist, pro-life groups, the IRS persecuting them, going after free speech, banning Halloween parties, dressing like cowboys or Indians at colleges. It's a tyranny. These people are not liberals like Thomas Jefferson. They are autocratic control freaks like Joseph Stalin. And Dr. Savage has been exposing this for decade after decade after decade, and now it's coming to a head. Homeland Security is fully converting over to go after the American people. The gun confiscation's already begun in New York, California, and other areas. The persecution is right out of, well, Nazi Germany. Hitler from 33 to about 39 ratcheted up political harassment, audits, going after businesses of groups he didn't like. We're seeing a Cold War against anyone loyal to common sense and freedom. Now, I'm done ranting. I want to give Dr. Savage the floor here. But he gets it, I get it, a few others get it, Joseph Farah gets it, but undoubtedly, and I talk to top Pentagon brass on air and off air. I have top CIA sources, you hear them here. People that are on my show right after they brief Congress. The military knows Obama and others are funding radical Islam. They know the borders are open. They know they're letting Ebola in. They know they're shutting down the power plants. They know they're shutting down the businesses and passing taxes to kill the country. This is to bankrupt us under Cloward and Piven, but it's beyond that. And now they want to start a civil war with Obama at its head as the new Lincoln. Now, Savage has been saying that for 8 years. They're now making all the preparations to do it. His book is so timely. It is the talking points of truth. It could end up being one of the most important books of the modern era if people get it and get it out to others, and if every talk show host covers these points, because I've been living this. I know this is accurate, and it's finally on paper. I never got Obama Deception 2 out. I was too busy. Its subtitle was The Coming Second American Civil War. Okay? So thank God this got put out, but from his gravitas perspective. Now, I'm hyperventilating here, sir, because if people don't pay attention to this, we're not going to save this country, and it's going to collapse in my view. Am I wrong? Am I right? You've got the floor.
Well, people, I want to start from the point of view of the doubters and the skeptics, Alex. I always think about what the people listening to me who don't agree with us think. Some of them are intelligent, obviously, and they listen to us because they know we're super intelligent, but they don't agree with us. They think we're hysterics or alarmists. So I would start by addressing those who say, come on, you're just trying to peddle a book. What's civil war? Well, first of all, Obama declared a civil war the day he took office. Didn't he say he was going to transform America? Didn't he say he was a transformational president? Well, he's done everything he said he was going to do, but not entirely. He's done it in 6 years, a very good job for the globalists. Take a look at every aspect of this government. And I don't mean just the government. Each chapter is interesting. I rephrased before I published it to the war on. The war on our borders, language, culture. Can anyone listening to Alex's show right now say that they have not attack the borders, our language and our culture? How about the war on the U.S. military, the war on American medicine? I'll talk about Ebola. If you like your Ebola, you can keep your Ebola. If you like your ED68 virus in your child's school, you can keep your ED68. It was brought in by the trainload from Central America this summer. What I love most is I did a chapter of the war on civil rights. Obama poses as the great champion of civil rights. Oh, really? Tell that to those targeted by the IRS. Tell that to those being snooped on by the NSA. What civil rights? You mean for the rioters and the freeloaders and the grifters? Seems they have civil rights and the rest of us don't. The war in our schools, who can argue that our schools are better than they were before he took office? The children are dumber than they've ever been. We are now below that of, I think, Nicaragua in learning. I've never seen anything like it. When I first moved to California, I loved the fact that I was a poor grad student. I had 2 children, God bless them, and I knew I could never afford to send them to private school. The University of California, Cal State, public schools were at the top of the heap in the country. You know where they are now? About that of Tijuana. I wonder how that happened. So whatever you look at, whatever this person has touched and his radical leftist band of not-so-merry pranksters has been decimated. So he has declared a civil war on us, Alex. It's not like, oh, there's going to be a civil war. There is a civil war. But it's the type that you've been talking about for years, the cloven hoof method. I mean, a Clovis Piven method or whatever. We've all known the little secret methods that they've used, but call it the cloven hoof method. You don't have to start a civil war with a gun. It's far more effective if you do it through brainwashing, and you own the press, and you own the media, and there's a government media complex, which we know exists. All along, Alex, I prayed that there would be some godsend that would save us from this psychotic in the White House and his band of very, very dangerous people. You're going to think I'm a little weird here when I say that Ebola may be the silver lining. Maybe that's going to awaken people to the fact that this man is not only incompetent, but that his radical open borders agenda is going to kill all of us. Just maybe this could be a blessing. What do you think of that idea?
I tend to agree with you. There's now bumper stickers popping up everywhere. We already had a T-shirt in the pipe showing the Obama symbol as the O in Ebola.
Yep.
And the fact that they totally opened up the borders while they're taking our basic liberties with the NSA spying on the Tea Party, the fact that they have Homeland Security saying their main threat is the Tea Party with no violence from the Tea Party. I'm really concerned, like you said a few years ago, that they could pull a false flag and try to blame it on the Liberty Movement.
Thank you. That's the whole book, Stop the Coming Civil War. I warn the readers that they're going to provoke an insurrection with agents provocateurs as a pretext for either martial law or seizing weapons, or worse than that. People say, well, it's only 2 more years left of him. BS. You actually think this guy's going to leave office in 2 years? I'm not so sure of that.
By the way, I used to disagree when people said he would stay, but now I see they're going for broke. We've never seen anything like this.
No, I've never seen anything like it. So, you know, Alex, look, I am trying to get people to read the book, obviously. I don't need to buy a new car. I don't need to buy a new house. I don't need a vacation in Boca Raton. I'm not looking to buy any more bling. As you can see, I have a lot of it on my hands.
You don't need to work 15 hours a day.
No. No, I'm 72 years old, Alex. I was a Boy Scout when I was a young kid who went around the neighborhood putting out get-out-the-vote cards on doorknobs. My father called the police at 11 at night because I got so into thinking I was a good American, I forgot the time, and I worked my little heart out. Every doorknob in Queens, New York, I hung get out the vote. I thought I was doing some good. You know what I'm saying? But the fact of the matter is we're all doing some good. And if you look at the headline on Drudge, party isolates Prez for election. Even his own party recognizes how unpopular he is, Alex. So what's going on? Are people awakening to him or what? If you know, Alex, I got to tell you this in terms of raw numbers. Yesterday, WorldNet Daily did an article on the book, and it said 30 Days to Save America as the head and the lead. It was a good article on the book. You know that it was linked on Drudge. They had 1.2 million hits as of this morning on that one article. Can you believe that in one day? So how is this happening? Who's reading this? Facebook, it was one of the leading stories yesterday. Well, are they waking up or what? Or is it just a joke to them? I don't really know, Alex.
Well, they better wake up because they've got the military. The military's never been more awake, as you know, because they're openly training them. And it even comes out in Fox News, not just your show or my show, but I was sent the documents originally that, quote, the founding fathers wouldn't be welcome in today's military. That you better not be part of the Tea Party or an evangelical. What country did we wake up in where they threaten to court-martial people if they're a Christian? I mean, that is just communist China on steroids.
Michael Savage warns of Second Civil War, a new book. Michael Savage, conservative radio host, warns of civil war. Some of the headlines on some of the smaller blogs, conservative radio talk shows, Michael Savage warns of coming civil war. But ask yourself why I am not invited on Fox News, Alex. Are you a guest on Fox News from time to time?
No, not anymore. I'm told I'm banned.
Are you banned? You're also banned. Well, okay, you're Ray-banned like I am. They Ray-banned you. I wonder what that's about. Couldn't be related to Murdoch supporting Hillary, could it?
I know he does support her. And again, what's wrong with him? I mean, there's going to be no country if Hillary gets in.
Well, I can answer that. I pretty much know what's going on there. Look, their licenses are owned by the federal government. The FCC controls licensing. You know that. There's a big, tug of war going on. They're saying, you want to stay in business? Fine. You want to buy radio stations in the same city you own TV stations and newspapers? Okay, then here's what we need. It's a trade-off. That's why I fear the government media complex. Alex, in the 60s, we were warned by the liberals, because I was a kid in college. I wasn't a kid. I was 20 years old, that the interlocking corporate directorships were to be avoided. That was the liberal credo of the time. Watch out for the interlocking corporate directorships, right? Well, now you've got newspapers, television owners, newspaper owners, radio owners, all in one city, right? How's that for interlocking corporate directorships? And the same directors sit on the boards of medical device companies, pharmaceutical companies, universities. So you've got a seamless corporate fascism that has emerged in America because of the conglomeration of all in one basket.
That's right. But the classic Napoleon or Hitler scenario where they got power over their own country, they got power over their own system, but they don't have power over the laws of nature, and now they're so arrogant out in the open, and Congress has a 7% approval rating. The military is awakening to the point of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs goes to the Senate Armed Services Committee and admits that we're funding the radical Islamicists. The military brass I talk to are totally upset. The police I talk to have never been more awake. So it's almost like a best of times, worst of times, tale of two cities. There is the huge awakening happening, but the corrupt crony capitalists that have teamed up with the socialists as their political team to control the population don't care and are just saying, Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. I mean, she didn't really say that famously before the Bastille got stormed, but our political elite are saying let them eat cake as Obamacare bankrupts the country and raises payroll taxes and has death panels, all confirmed, and then John Boehner funds it. Why is John Boehner still the Speaker of the House? What is wrong with the Republican leadership? Don't they understand the socialists, once they get control, are going to take everything they've got?
I can't answer anything about Republicans, but, you know, you brought up the military. That's a sore point for me because we can disagree on a lot of things, but in an age of head-cutting and radical Islam, I think everyone would agree that military, national defense are key. And yet, in the chapter on the war in the U.S. military in my book, I actually named the generals that he's purged. He purged them the way Stalin did, except in a little different way. Remember when Stalin seized power, he became a madman later on, and he shot his generals. People don't realize he purged the Soviet military of some of the greatest generals because he was afraid they would coup against him.
He killed thousands of officers, hundreds of generals.
Well, Obama's just firing them by threatening to take away their pension. Now, why is he doing it? Because he recognized, as anyone can see, any student of history, even amateur student of history, the one element of this government that could have stood up to this left-wing, fanatical, insane dictatorship was the military. So right after Benghazi, 4 generals were dismissed because they were ready to send aid and defend the embassy, save Chris Stevens. They were ready to testify to that effect. He fired them, including a general, African-American general with 28 years of loyal service to this country. He was dismissed. Not one word in the media over this, Alex. I have their names, ranks, and serial numbers in Stop the Coming Civil War. That was the beginning. How many majors did we read he was purging? 8,000. How many captains do we read he's purging and dismissing from the military? Thousands. So what's left? The cannon fodder. The followers will follow the four horsewomen of the apocalypse surrounding Obama, or worse yet, the Muslim sisterhood, which seems to be advising him right inside the White House.
It is a Twilight Zone episode, because I would hear you and others talk about the caliphate 10 years ago and just go, give me a break.
Right.
And then 8 years ago when Obama was running for office. And now it's like the Twilight Zone with his brother and his cousin funding the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Why would our government want to overthrow our ally in Egypt and put al-Qaeda light in? Why would they want to topple Assad and put al-Qaeda in? Why? What is the master plan geopolitically from your view, Michael Savage, with Russia and all of it? And then I want to tie it into the hot civil war. I get from your book, and I agree, we're in a civil war, a culture war, and it's heating up. But they're pushing this flashpoint, and I want to stop that.
We all want to stop it because nobody wins from a civil war. Look at Syria. How many years has it been going on? How many hundreds of thousands
4 years.
dead? How many cities are in ruin? We don't want a civil war. Here's the scary part, and I hate to use the word because I'm not into childish words. One of Obama's mentors was Abraham Lincoln. Isn't that correct?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, Abraham Lincoln was a wonderful man for some, but a monster to others. People don't even understand what Lincoln did to us. Lincoln was not a humanitarian. He was an opportunist who further divided a politically polarized country simply because he wanted to dominate the southern states economically. He was no saint. Do you know this? Very few people know this about Lincoln. And this is very important because Obama has said Lincoln is one of his mentors. Under the rights that Lincoln granted himself in the 1862 proclamation, a stunning overreach of executive power, Abraham Lincoln violated American civil rights with impunity. He is estimated to have arrested and imprisoned some 20,000 civilians and detained them without trials. That was 20,000 in the 1860s.
Members of Congress.
Yeah, but you know that. I know that. And Obama knows that. Now, here's another one, Alex, and it's all in Stop the Coming Civil War. Lincoln kept Southern prisoners of war in internment camps under deplorable conditions. He may be on a penny, on the old Lincoln penny, but at Fort Delaware, more than 2,000 Confederate soldiers died of scurvy and dysentery in a camp plagued by filth and vermin. Confederate prisoners in the Union camp at Rock Island were reduced to eating rats, and with their clothing and rags were unable to withstand the winter cold. They were tortured by being hung by their thumbs. Now, if that's not the action of a dictator, I don't know what is. And yet, if you mention one word of this, right away they say, oh, so you're in favor of slavery. No, that's not what I said. I didn't say that at all. What I said is Lincoln is one of Obama's mentors. God knows who else is. It could be Ho Chi Minh or Mao Zedong or Fidel Castro or Hugo Chavez.
Well, we know it's Saul Alinsky, and now we have the Hillary papers where she's worshiping him.
Well, you know, people change in time. Let's hope that Hillary, with all of the money that they've made, have become somewhat capitalistic and a little more greedy. It's the only thing that could save us, but I doubt it, because Leninists were always rich. I mean, they're not Marxists. People get it wrong. They say, oh, they're Marxists. No, it's not Marxism. It's Leninism. It's much different. It's like a cousin, as you well know. But it's even beyond that. I don't know what it is. I sometimes think that it's not even Marxism or Leninism. It's pure, unadulterated mafia greed.
That's it. It's mafia masquerading with a pseudo-intellectual communist pantheon to fool a bunch of poor people into becoming slaves in a giant work camp.
Period. It's all about money. Do you know how much money is being made on these unaccompanied minors from Central America? Did you see that article that came out showing how much the Baptist Family Services got from the federal government?
Yeah, hundreds of millions. And each little Democratic family per group of 2 illegals gets $6,000 to $7,000 a month. So it's a giant mafia payoff.
Bingo. Look at the money, the fortunes that are being made on these children. Now, let's go to Ebola, which is wakening people up because they're scared. As I've said before, this is my field, is epidemics. Microbes do not discriminate. Here's the good news, I say to my communist, liberal, hipster friends with scraggly beards. The microbes don't know you're a good liberal who love, all of the good things of the world. They don't know if you're black, white, Asian, blah, 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 gay, straight. All they know is that you're a warm body and a good host. And they like to proliferate inside warm bodies that are good hosts. So when an epidemic starts to spread, it will spread. It'll go to liberals. It'll go to this one, that one. They're waking up to that. Even common sense sometimes permeates the most drug-addled brain. And perhaps, just perhaps, they'll come to understand that my message of borders, language, and culture was not just some crackpot right-wing jargon. Maybe there's a definition that has meaning. Why the hell did the nations create borders? Why did a nation define itself by borders? Let's start with the most obvious, Alex. What is a border? A border is made to keep certain people out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like having a door on your house. I mean, it's you got to have it. Or a
cell wall. I compare it to every human cell has a cell wall, right? A membrane.
Yes.
In a plant cell is surrounded by a thick cell membrane. Well, once the integrity of the membrane is punctured, the good protoplasm oozes out and bad stuff oozes into the cell and the body gets sick and dies. That's exactly what a border was created for. Keep out the bad, protect those on this side. It's a basic premise of survival.
That's right. Dr. Savage, we got to go to break. We're going to come back. And again, he's got a Ph.D. from the University of California at Berkeley in epidemiology, nutrition sciences, and also in medical anthropology. So he knows the history of diseases. He has a Ph.D. in that, folks. So we're going to hear from a real expert historically. Black Plague, you name it, Ebola, what he thinks is going on with Ebola, and why. My big question, I want to get his take on this. Why would the government not stop the flights when everybody else is and be so obvious? If there is an epidemic here, how are they going to get away with it?
We're on them.
Well, I've got to say it. There are not a lot of originals out there in political talk radio. The main pack kind of follows one mainline Republican view. But I've got to say, trailblazing in the last 20 years are Michael Savage and Alex Jones. Michael Savage was a lot bigger than I was before this show became the phenomenon it is right now. And I, quite frankly, I was just talking to him about this during the break. I'm not in competition with him. He's not in competition with me. Kind of like he works with WorldNet Daily. I plug them every day. Or Drudge or anybody else. I just want to have a free country. I don't want to see a civil war. I've got a ranch in East Texas we've had since 1829 that we got Mexican land grant on. I just want to live in a free country and raise my 3 children, just like Michael Savage has kids and grandkids. I mean, there comes a time when you just can't go along with the system. Now, Michael and I can clearly say I've never done that, but all these other talk show hosts and all these other Republicans and Democrats and people, what Michael was just saying about something like Ebola, doesn't care what color you are or where you're from or what your sexual preference is or what race you are. The government's gone insane. Now, their plan is wreck the country like old-fashioned wreckers and go loot the ship. But most folks won't know what a wrecker is. It's not something that comes and picks your car up when it's parked in the wrong space. But that's the vulture mentality of the political class. Look at this news story right here out of KIRO TV. CDC not taking extra Ebola precautions at SeaTac Airport. They are flying in dozens of people every few weeks. It's over 25 people that have Ebola. Someone they brought into Spain has now spread Ebola at the hospital, and people are getting it. The Ebola patient in Dallas died. They didn't even quarantine the family for days. They didn't clean the ambulance for days. They are violating the default positions. Now, that's a civil war against America. When France and England and Saudi Arabia have banned flights a month and a half ago, we don't ban them. The CDC comes out and says banning them would make it worse. That's like saying, you know, winning the lottery would make you lose money. It's just total asinine. 2 + 2 = 5. Stop the coming civil war. My Savage Truth, Michael Savage, the new book available now in bookstores. And, of course, on Amazon and at WorldNet Daily and everywhere else, michaelsavage.com. And I don't have stock in the book, folks. This is what I've been hammering. He hits a lot of angles I don't hits a lot of the angles we do. This is great to give people out there and say, hey, love your kids? Now's the time. And I want to get specifically into where he sees the Civil War going if we don't stop it, things we can do to turn this around. But, Dr. Savage, you were starting to get into the epidemiology of this clearly mutated incubating 21 days, able to spread longer. You've got multiple degrees in medical anthropology, so the history of diseases and their spread, degrees in nutrition sciences, degrees in medical botany, which is a medical degree, for people to understand, you're a key expert to speak on Ebola. Break down Ebola and then expand how you see things unfolding. You envisioned it decades ago. You've been very accurate with the lay of the land, totally open borders, open treason, 10 ISIS fighters crossing the border. Congressman Hunter learned from Homeland Security. Total stand down. I want the big picture, what you think the criminals at Pennsylvania Avenue are planning. But first, Ebola.
Well, I called him President Ebola 2 weeks ago. I thought that cute little phrase might stick. I'm glad to see the Ebola bumper stickers in L.A. with the O in the middle, but that's not going to get us where we want to go. This is going to be possibly the lifesaver for America. There's a clamoring coming up from the people. They're screaming, what the hell are they doing? When I saw that Friedkin from CDC speaking saying, don't worry, we're in control, I was screaming. I know where Friedkin came from. I know who put him in. Here's the part that kills me. Not one person in the medical establishment is speaking out about Ebola in the proper manner, nor about the ED68 virus from Central America, which is now raging through our schools. Think about this, Alex. You would think that several doctors, MPH, epidemiologists, docs, would say, wait a minute, we know where the virus comes from with the ED68. It's endemic in Central America. We can prove it. Just look at the DNA of the virus. No one says a word. We're living in the ex-Soviet Union in the 1950s when there was a government and then there was no medical establishment. In fact, during the 50s, there was a thing called the Lysenko affair. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
I do, yeah.
It was false science put out by the government. And if anyone said otherwise, even though scientists knew it was all bull, you know what, they were dismissed from the universities or put into the
they were
gulag.
saying you soak the wheat in the water and it makes it grow better and all this other crazy stuff that killed tens of millions.
Okay, we now have a government scientific medical complex. Whatever the four horsewomen of the apocalypse say in the White House, the little parrots like Friedkin and Fauci at the NIH repeat like little parrots. We don't have any scientists left in this country. They're government scientists.
It's like global warming. They say no one disagrees that global warming's real. Pay Al Gore money, even though it's a total fraud on record.
Well, okay, that's one thing. We know that's just a scam for money for the grifters. But now the Ebola, this is no longer just greed. This is going to kill people. Why have they not stopped flights? As I keep saying, and this is the simplest point I can make to the doubting Thomasettes out there, African dictators and nations around the Ebola-plagued nations don't permit them to travel to their countries. Ipso facto, third world African dictators have more common sense than Barack Ebola. How is that possible? Why is he not being forced to ban flights? How can we keep hearing this crap about it'll cause an insurrection in Liberia? Well,
what's at its heart? Well, I mean, you know psychology. I want your take. Why are they trying to be over the top, to break our will, to just exercise raw power? Why is it so naked when it discredits them? The optics destroy them. They don't care.
I think that many of them are drugged, to be frank with you. I look at them and I watch them speak. I watch them. I look at their faces and I watch their mouths. There's a disconnect from reality.
They do look like mental patients. They are mentally ill.
Well, I wrote a book in 2005 called Liberalism is a Mental Disorder. It wasn't written in jest. Because many people say, well, why would they do this? I said, well, take this formula and plug it in. Liberalism is a mental disorder. It applies, Alex. I think they're crazy. They're drugged. They're on medication. They're like on antidepressants, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're like robots. They're robotic. Let's go back a few weeks. Remember the fence jumper at the White House who got all the way into the White House, how they lied to us about that one?
Yes.
What was that, Alex? I'm sure you covered it in detail.
It was
how is that related to what we're talking about, if at all, Alex? What was that?
What's your take on it?
I'm sorry. I think that there was an attempt by elements within this government to send the warning into the White House.
That's what I'm getting from the military and others is they really realize they're bringing the whole country down right now, and there is a major power struggle internally.
Well, I don't know if that's the reason, or some caller said, Mike, you have it backwards. This was a false flag event to permit the White House to demand a bigger security barrier around the White House,
sure,
meaning a cordon sanitaire that's 2 blocks wide. So I kept saying, wait a minute, 2 years ago, an unarmed black woman with a baby in the back was executed by the Secret Service and the Park Police. Remember that incident?
Yeah.
She got lost. She was driving around. She wasn't anywhere near the White House, and they whacked her in the car with a fusillade of bullets with a baby in the back. Not only were they not indicted, they were given commendations for their bravery. How come she was executed and the fence jumper wasn't even attacked by a police dog? What's that about?
It does look staged.
Okay, so it's staged one way or the other. Take your pick, right? Staged to send a message saying, hey, excuse me, or to tell us he needs a bigger cordon sanitaire, sort of like, let us say, Uruguay or Paraguay with tanks on the White House lawn, maybe.
I made you digress. Get back into Ebola and how serious you think it is, and how could they try to get away with this? Because either way, they've ordered a stand down. They've ordered a stand down on default medical procedures, CDC law, policy. What's happening?
Okay, well, your question implies that they want it to spread, but I don't think that's the reason. I believe it goes back to the doxies and the agenda of the radical left, which is open borders, open borders, open borders. It's a religion to them, Alex. And as you well know, religious fanatics will keep repeating the doxies of their religion, no matter what's going on around them. So the doxy is keep the borders open, keep the borders open, good for America, good for the economy, keep the borders open. The minute they would close flights or suspend flights from Liberia and other plague
that
nations,
would reaffirm common sense, and then that would be the beginning of the end of their religion.
That's right. Then the religion would have to say, wait a minute, if you're closing that, why don't you close the border to Mexico? See, so they can't afford to reverse any agenda item. That's part of their strategy. Never, ever relent. Not for 1 second. Even if people are dying around you.
I agree with you. That's why the CDC said we can't close the border.
The CDC chief should be arrested. See, he gets me enraged. I know who put him in power, and I know why he was put in power. It was to prevent quarantine during the AIDS epidemic. They put friendly people in every public health department across the United States. You look around, you'll see what I'm talking about. And that was to prevent quarantine during the early days of the AIDS epidemic. And they've never, ever changed their protocols on any disease. And now we have Ebola coming in, which is far more devastating than AIDS in terms of it kills quicker, okay? Let's be clear. And yet there's nothing be put in place here. And Obama gives speeches that everything's in charge. We know what we're doing. We got medical care. Nonsense. But this is just the beginning. Alec, they sent 3,000 to 5,000 troops to Africa. Now, why would they knowingly put our men and women at risk?
And the military brass said it won't even do anything. It's just, it's like sponges to go soak up Ebola.
Take a look at the military brass. He purged all those in the military who might have stood up to him. So now you've got yes men who look like ushers in a movie theater. I mean, don't they?
They do.
And what I love most is this clown Panetta, who decimated the military, was one of the worst hatchet men in the history of the U.S. military, the worst man for national security ever, now is putting out a book making believe that he's opposing Obama in some way. And by the way, Alex, this is cute. Every bookstore has like 1,000 copies of his book and 20 of mine. My book was cleaned out the first day yesterday. His books are still sitting there in stacks. And yet everywhere you turn, there's Panetta on O'Reilly. There's Panetta at USA Today. Where's Savage? Never heard of him. Who's he?
Well, that's because they don't want real folk heroes or real independent journalists or real independent firebrands to rally the people out of this. So they block. I mean, that's the seal of anybody who's really good, is they block them. Notice Piers Morgan was on Fox for 10 minutes today throwing Obama under the bus. What does that signify that even the red coat worshiper of Obama is now leaving the sinking ship?
What does it tell you that the idiots at Fox would rather have a man who was thrown off television because of poor ratings than someone who can tell the truth about Ebola, ED-68, the decimation of our military, the plans for another civil war to seize our guns? What does it tell you? It's all the government media complex, Alex. We're both voices in the wilderness here. It doesn't mean we're not going to win, by the way.
Oh, yeah, because our audience is, that's another thing. We talk about Fox, average show, about 2.5 million listeners. MSNBC now, average show about 300,000. CNN, average show about 300,000. That's joke level. I mean, one of your big affiliates, and like New York City or something's got hundreds of thousands an hour. Some of our big affiliates have 60, 70,000 an hour. Rated, shown, known, instant ratings on their radios. We know. I've got 3 million a day. You got 6, 7, 8 million a day. I get 10, 15 million YouTube views a week. But still, it's like a facade that there's the big mainstream media. They've got all the answers. They're the big man behind the curtain, the wonderful Oz.
Well, we understand the powers that be and what's involved here. You know, we're bucking the system with the salmon swimming upstream to spawn the truth, to use a crude analogy. And let's just hope that when we finally do spawn, we don't die in the tidal pool.
Exactly. I don't be eaten by a Kodiak. Now, shift gears back to what you just said, because that's the part of the book I'm getting to. The hot war, the hot civil war, to brand the patriots as the terrorists, to get the shooting war going, to take the guns. Get into that. I mean, I know it's in the book, but break down your real fear of where they may want to take us. Well,
I think you just said it, Alex. Here's the thing. How do you stop them is the question. What is the point of a person reading a book like Stop the Coming Civil War? I keep saying, and you probably disagree with me entirely, the election coming up in November is key to the salvation of the nation. Let me explain.
No, I agree with you.
Okay, because many people say, well, wait a minute. You're saying let the Republicans take back the Senate and what? You're going to have Boehner now in charge? Yes. Let me explain why. Here's my theory. The Democrat Socialist Islamist Party, which is what I call Democrats now, DSI, Democrat Socialist Islamist Party USA, is a closed shop. It's a mafia. You cannot reach them. Nobody can reach Reid or Pelosi or
It's a cult. We have a chance in the Republicans.
Because they're weaker. See, that's my theory. The Republicans are weaker and more frightful. And once they are given the power again by we the people, they're going to have hell to pay if they don't do what we want with regard to borders, language, and culture. Sealing the borders, rebuilding the military, recreating national security, getting rid of the devils that were put into every agency in the country. And we're going to lobby them through town hall meetings. And we're going to reach them, Alex, because they're reachable. They're going to be reachable. We're going to make them reachable. That's my theory, Alex.
Well, certainly once the Democrats aren't in control of the Justice Department, they can't be blackmailing or harassing people anymore. So we can give the libertarian movement, the constitutional movement, a chance, which is why you see Democrats and Republicans at the top organized together against the real Tea Party. Not that it's perfect, but that it's one of our only shots non-violently.
That's right. It's the only shot we have non-violently. That's correct. That's all we've got is this election in November. So when World Net Daily headlined the article, 30 Days to Save America, I was quite impressed because they actually broke it down. That is what I'm saying in Stop the Coming Civil War. So if people talk to someone in their family, you know, in every family there's a liberal and a conservative and a libertarian, right? Get that one person in the family to swing their vote over to the R side, explain why, and just talk about Ebola, just talk about national security, talk about the purging of the generals. But here's a shocking fact that is on page, I think, you know, you're not going to believe me. Do you know how many people have been killed who are ready to testify on Benghazi?
How many?
15.
Wow.
15. I don't know how I dug this one up. I'm almost afraid to read it on the air. You know, this Marxist, Leninist culture that we're talking about. It's on page 71. Can I read you the paragraph?
Go ahead.
On January 2014, the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence released its bipartisan report on the Benghazi terrorist attacks. It contained information so shocking I can't believe it hasn't been the focus of an investigation. The report said that as many as 15 people supporting the investigation or otherwise helpful to the United States have been killed in Benghazi since the September 11, 2011 attacks, reference number 30. 15 people who helped us in Benghazi have been killed since then. So how could that be? Are we not to believe that their identities were not leaked into the hands of jihadists overseas because they helped us? Could it not be that the purging of our own seasoned military commanders may go well beyond what happened in Benghazi? Now, I believe that there's still a contingent in the U.S. military that wants to see President Obama ousted. You believe that too, don't you?
Yes.
Well, he's continuing his purge of the U.S. military. And I want to ask something, Alex, of your listeners.
Hold it there. This is a key question. We're going to come back in the final segment with Michael Savage straight ahead. I know he's a busy guy. If he wants to do 10 or 15 more minutes with us, he's welcome. He's probably got to go. Final 6-minute segment with Michael Savage, michaelsavage.com, infowars.com is my site. I'm Alex Jones. Final segment with Michael Savage, open phones, and a ton of breaking news in the third hour coming up before we end this transmission. We'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock Central, InfoWars Nightly News. Front page of Infowars.com, Ebola with the Obama symbol, the rising sun of tyranny. And it says anti-gun, anti-sovereignty, anti-liberty. Tyranny is a disease. So that's a great way to basically equate Obama with the disease Ebola to help wake up the people of this country and the rest of the world. Also, don't forget, you can learn what the system doesn't want you to know about immunity through real nascent iodine from the crystal form, and also with DNA Force from InfoWarsLife.com. I'm not going to belabor it, but the stuff in DNA Force is literally the equivalent of like just one serving 500 cartons of blueberries. The CoQ10, the PPQ, all the stuff that's in it's patented, and it's the next level of vitamin C. It's beyond that. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. Michael Savage, we got 5 minutes left. Thank you for the time. You've got the floor. You said you have a question for the military.
Yes, I have a question for the military. Do any of the leaders in the military understand what he's done to this country? Do they understand what Bagel has done to the military? Do they understand that there's no real war against ISIS? How many times have we seen that clown who looks like an usher come out from the Defense Department and tell us that today we destroyed 2 trucks? So let's say it cost us $35 million and these incredible pilots to blow up 2 Toyota trucks with 3 ragheads in it. Why are they not blowing up any of the M1A Sherman, the Abrams tanks that were stolen from the Iraqi military when those cowards in the Iraqi military threw down their weapons and abandoned their bases? They took our Abrams tanks. Remember ISIS did? Have you yet seen one Abrams tank blown up? No. Why? Because this entire war against ISIS is a sham. It's a pretext for invading Syria, taking down Assad, and leading to the wholesale slaughter of Christians and other Alawites in Syria. We're about to see another Holocaust occur. Why is this allowed to go on? How can the West permit this? Because there is no West anymore. There is no West. The leadership has been compromised, taken over. I'm actually begging those in the military who know what's going on to speak out long before they're retired and suddenly grow a pair of you-know-what. I love all these retired generals who are sudden, regular guests on Fox and CNN, telling us all of the bad things that happened when they were generals. The trick is to speak out while you are a general, not after you're, retired. This is it. We have no time left. We're not surviving 2 more years of Ebola. It's impossible. And I say that from a statistical point of view. Look at what he's done in these 6 years. Now follow the arc to 8 years. It's metastasizing. It's geometrically progressing.
He's accelerating.
It is. It's not going to be just 2 more years of this mild socialist, Leninist, slow movement. It's going to escalate and ratchet up. He wants it. He wants an insurrection. He wants a pretext. He wants his Kristallnacht. He wants to take the guns. He wants to arrest people. He wants to detain people for their own safety. He wants to do all the things that we've feared at our worst. And I'm terrified that he might use Ebola as a pretext. Rather than being impeached for this, for bringing it in, letting it come in, he's liable to use it to gain even more power. That's my worst fear, Alex. That's why I wrote Stop the Coming Civil War.
He's been signing executive orders for open martial law. Can he get away with it, though, if they let Ebola spread and then use that to grab power?
Sure he can. Who's going to stop him? John Boehner? The New York Times? That's what I'm worried about.
It is the yes men attitude that's allowing this evil to take over.
I don't know. I think the West is paralyzed, drugged. I think it's just drugged to death. I look around, I see drugs everywhere I see. I look at the Congress, they look like robotic.
You're right. MichaelSavage.com, Stop the Coming Civil War. The book's selling out everywhere. Thank you so much for the time. Michael and I and many others are just trying to wake people up. Michael, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Alex.
We'll be back.